It's live streamed and it's on my Facebook. You can share it if you want to. Now I'm going to go and make sure that we haven't been Zuckerberg, that we're really live. I don't trust Facebook. We're live. So now I'm going to go to my photos and read your intro for people that he's falling asleep. Hi, Facebook people. You guys, here we are at Comic Spot interview 967. Sorry, Bill, you weren't my first.
Aw.
I know, I'm so sorry. I could fake my husband. He was my first, but oh well. Anyway, so you guys at home, I don't care if you have your clothes on, just kick back and get to know Bill Dawes today. Woo! We got Bill Dawes in the house. His intro that I found when I was snooping, you know.
Oh boy, I'm so curious what it's going to be.
You can correct me at any point because you never know. Bill Dawes is an American actor and stand-up comic. He holds an aerospace engineering degree from Princeton University and an MFA in acting at NYU. While living in New York, Bill starred in 3 Broadway plays and over a dozen off-Broadway plays, as well as appearing in over 50 films and TV shows. As a comic, he has toured nationally as well as internationally with the USO. Oh yeah, now we can talk. And considers the Hollywood Laugh Factory his home club. He's best known for Damages, Before the Sun Explodes, Law and Order, Special Victim Units, and Encounter with Riz Ahmed. You guys, welcome into right now the Comic Spot, the only Bill Dawes. Thank you.
Oh.
What's going on?
It's just staying inside and out of the 115-degree weather.
Absolutely, it's so hot out. I believe in global warming today.
Oh yes.
Yes, I caught your show last night. It was so funny. All 3 of you are so uniquely different. It's a great show at the Laugh Factory, 8:30, 10:30, all the way through Sunday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's get down to your life. Where were you born, in Virginia?
I was born in Northern Virginia in Alexandria. My dad was, he worked for the nuclear Navy. He was a bureaucrat and retired a civilian naval officer. And I have 2 brothers. I just grew up like very kind of like lower middle class, out, in public schools in Virginia. And that's kind of sort of informed, I would say, most of my comedy.
Wow.
That very bizarre upbringing.
So your dad was Navy, and then he became a GS level employee of the government, right?
Yes.
That's so great. Is he still alive?
He is still alive. Both my parents are still alive. They're hanging in there.
Awesome. Well, tell him thank you from me for serving. I served in the Army.
Oh, wow. It's very cool.
That's almost serving. So
yeah.
let's talk about you becoming so funny. Like, among your family, do you have 18 brothers and sisters, and that's why you have a sense of humor?
No, I have 2 older brothers, and I talk about my act. They're both doctors. They're both married to doctors. They both have 2 kids each. They kind of did the path to a degree that my dad wanted them to take, just sort of like college, job, marriage, children. And by the time it got to me, the pressure was off. So I was able to sort of explore a different path for my life, obviously.
That's so great. Oh my gosh. So in your family, your parents wanted to have doctors and they're not Jewish?
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, my dad was an engineer. So we all entered college as engineers, and we all stopped. We all quit engineering. I was an engineer, through Princeton, and it never really suited me. I'm not as smart as my brothers. So in fairness, I wasn't really able to excel the way they did. But I discovered theater and dance. I discovered dance at a very young age. I had really bad issues with vocal constriction and a lisp, a very bad lisp. So speaking wasn't really a forte of mine at all, but I was always pretty physical, and I was a professional breakdancer. So I was kind of the clown on the breakdance team. So a lot of my entry into comedy was just as a physical comic. At one point, I wanted to go to clown school, to Jacques Lecoq in Paris, and become a clown. My big heroes were Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton growing up. So most of the laughs I got kind of growing up when I was in school as a class clown, it wasn't from pithy one-liners or jokes. It was just from pratfalls or jumping off things or silly faces and stuff like that. And even when I started comedy, my first foray into comedy was just as a physical comic. You know, it was sort of when Dane Cook was at his peak, and you could see people that really implemented their physical skills for comedy. And so most of my early years of comedy were all my jokes were all physical. I would literally break dance. I would do the worm on stage. I would do pratfalls, just silly stuff. And it took a while for my writing and my joke telling to catch up with that. And even now, probably, you know, my physical performance is probably stronger than my writing. I do, you know, in comedy, they call them act outs. So it's very hard for me to tell a joke without some sort of connection to a physical expression of it, you know? So in terms of being funny, I don't know. I probably, because I wasn't wealthy, I didn't dress well, I didn't look very good. The only way I would get attention from girls, because that's why we all do this, was just goofy physical gags and stuff like that. So that's kind of like
last night. I've seen you perform twice, and I noticed last night something different. I noticed that I love your act outs, and that doesn't mean I don't like your comedy, but I noticed the act outs are superb. I did know.
I
love your act outs.
Yeah, it's funny because it's funny when a lot of people, oh, you're a physical comic or you do act outs. I in a way, at first I was like, oh, I didn't even realize I did that. I just think that that's how I express myself. Like physically, it's easier for me to express myself physically than it is vocally. Because I still struggle. I don't have the best diction in the world. I would love to be able to be like a rant comic, like a Tim Dillon, and just go in these long, lengthy rants without taking a breath. But for me, and also as an actor, it's the same way. Like I have to kind of physically engage with the part before I can make sense of it in a lot of ways, you know. And that's true with and I do stuff about accents. Same thing with accents are kind of a part of that. The way when your character, the way they hold their mouth, the way they hold their body, that's how I am able to find my way into a character. And so for stand-up, I kind of explore that as well with a lot of my bits.
That's super. I learned something new from every interview. You're teaching me right now, and other people will watch and learn from what you just said. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about all the Broadway and all the movies that you've written and been in. You've been in movies with Beautiful Violence. I can't remember. One of my favorite comedians I met in Portland, Oregon. What's his name?
Oh, that was part of Beautiful Violence, either Joey Medina or Eric Blake.
Joey, yes.
Joey Medina, yeah. He was one of the original Latin Kings of Comedy, yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, we filmed that during the pandemic. And so the story behind that is I did a video that got very viral, and I think probably aggregate on, you know, all the social medias, it probably got 200 million views between Facebook and YouTube and World Star and Hood Clips. The bit is called How a White Man Says the N-Word to a Black Man. And it was part of a show that was on Showtime, the Chocolate Sunday comedy special. And Pookie Wigginton, who owns Chocolate Sunday, he just said, here's a premise. You're a white guy. You want to say the N-word, but you can't. So you have your black friend who serves as a proxy to say it for you. And we didn't have much time to rehearse. They kept switching that. So I wrote the skit out, and these actors, Eric Blake and Justin, I'm blanking on his last name, they kind of came in just a few days before, and I kind of gave them the scripts, and there's a little bit of improv, and we went on, and it's just one of those magical moments where we hit the beats and the audience was there for it. And when it came out on Showtime, no one really saw the show. It didn't get much, but some DJ in Berlin took that clip from the opening scene of the special, posted on his Facebook saying, with a banner, when a white man says N-word to a black man. And I think within a few weeks, it got 80 million views or 60, 70 million views. And then the Laugh Factory put on their YouTube and Chocolate Sunday. And then it would keep kind of this is 2013, something like that. And it would just keep kind of getting viral, different points here and there, and then die away. So anyway, because of that, when Joey had this idea for this movie, I was like, oh, this sounds great. You know, basically the guy wants to die. So he goes into a bad neighborhood and calls a black guy the N-word to get him to kill him, so that when he dies, because he's dying of cancer as it is, his family will get insurance, because homicide will pay double than what just a suicide or just dying of cancer. He didn't want his wife to go through the chemo and the slow death of his terminal cancer. So he and the story, you know, it's basically just a referendum on racism and race relationships. These two people, they end up kind of reaching some sort of point of empathy with each other and understanding with each other. And I think it's kind of a beautiful little short film. It's won over 100 awards. It's gotten to, like, I don't know how many festivals, more than 100 festivals. So, you know, I don't know if it's going to do anything for my career, but it was just a nice little short film that we made on a shoestring budget in the pandemic to get some attention. So it's nice. But I got Eric Blake, because he did the sketch with me. So I said, I got the perfect guy to play the black guy. The same guy from the comedy sketch will put in the drama. And Eric had never acted before. But I knew his life because I interviewed him on my podcast, and he had a very interesting, troubled life. He basically ran a drug cartel in Compton, and sort of reformed his life later. And I knew that he had something really authentic about him that could speak to being a drug dealer in the inner city, which is what the character is in the Beautiful Violence short.
Wow. So I have somebody I adore in comedy, Adam Hunter, and I saw that you were in Pinn. Tell me about it.
Well, yeah, no, Adam is a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends in comedy. We also do a podcast together called MMA Roasted, because he's very much part of the UFC scene. And Pinn was just sort of a story that he had been thinking about. And Joey Medina, who directed Beautiful Violence, directed Pinn. And in that, I just played a really goofy gym teacher who becomes a wrestling coach who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And so then when Beautiful Violence came out, Joey Medina was like, I don't really see you playing this character in Beautiful Violence because you're a comedy actor. I was like, no, I'm a dramatic actor. I can cry and have snot come out my nose and all that shit. That's what I really thrive on. So I had an audition, and he was like, all right, he got it. But Pinn has been going around doing festivals. I think it's a great idea for a comedy show. I hope I have the best for it. I know it's really hard to get anything made in this fakakta town, but it's been doing pretty well and playing at festivals.
Super. Well, let's talk about some of your Broadway and off Broadway, your best moments, best things you've learned on and off Broadway and in movies that you've done, because you got them too, you know?
Yeah. I think the most satisfying Broadway show I ever did was a show called Lombardi. And it was really about the birth of the NFL. It doesn't sound like a show that would belong on Broadway. And a lot of people sort of poo-pooed it when it came out, like, oh, a show about football players on Broadway. But we had a lot of great things in our corner. Number one, we had David Marinus, who wrote a Pulitzer Prize winning biography of Lombardi that was sort of the genesis of it. And it was directed by probably the best director and one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, Tommy Kail, who went on to direct Hamilton. And he was a co-creator of Hamilton and In the Heights with Lin-Manuel Miranda. He directed it, and also two of my favorite people in the world played the leads. Judith Light, she played Vince Lombardi's wife, Marie, and she was nominated for a Tony for it. And Dan Lauria, who played Vince Lombardi. So it was just and then in the cast, it was like Chris Sullivan from This Is Us, Rob Riley from Dynasty. It was a really amazing cast of amazing actors, and the NFL was behind it. what was really great about it is because everyone just discounted this play as a play that no one's going to see, that wasn't in line with anything else that season on Broadway. It was the exact same season that the Green Bay Packers were an underdog, and Lombardi obviously was a coach of the Packers in the beginning of the NFL, and so they had a very underdog season, but it was the same season that they won the Super Bowl. So while the Packers, we had like kind of parallel moments where we were an underdog play, they were underdog, and we both kind of ended up getting to the same point. Like basically when they won the Super Bowl, was sort of when, it wasn't when our play ended, but it was kind of like the sort of like emotional end of the journey. It ended up running for 9 months, just a couple months after the Packers won the Super Bowl. And it was just nice to have this play that everyone just kind of become this kind of hit that people were like, whoa. And then when that happened, then you just start having people show up that you wouldn't expect. And it was in the round, you could see all the actors, you could see, Vince Vaughn came, he ended up hiring actors from the play and his show. Ed Burns came, a lot of sort of like tastemakers and artists and people, and Mara Rooney and all these, and it was kind of really cool to be in it. Tom Brady and Giselle came, and I got to meet them, which is incredible because, they came backstage and Giselle was like, wow, all Tom ever talks about is football, football, football. He finally takes me to a Broadway play and it's about football. So yeah. And then I think at that year, maybe half the Packers team came, a lot of the Yankees came, I met them. And then after it was done, we performed part of the play on Lambeau Field in Green Bay for the Packers shareholders, which is a pretty magical moment to have that too. So everything about this play was sort of perfect. I mean, when Packers won the Super Bowl, it was such a, I was never a Packers fan before that, but now I'm a fan for life. I gotta be, I got to wear the rings and go and take a tour of the stadium and everything there. It was pretty incredible run.
That's so cool. I love the Green Bay Packers, mostly because, well, of course, because of Vince, but they have the same colors as the University of Oregon.
That's true. Yeah. Green and
So,
yellow.
yeah, let's talk about your TV moments that you will never forget.
Oh boy. I mean, there's a lot. I've done a lot of TV. I think one of my first big shows had a guest star in Law and Order with the late great Jerry Orbach, and I think I was a little nervous. So Jerry Orbach is interrogating me in a room, and I think he could tell I was nervous. And he said, Bill, I used to be a song and dance man myself. He just started talking to me out of the blue. I was like, oh, yeah. He goes, as a matter of fact, I can harmonize with anything. Say something. And I went, 7 years ago. And he went, 7 years ago. And it just made me laugh. And I just realized that he was just trying to make me loosen up. So that was a beautiful moment. That was my first big guest star in a TV show. I wanted to do Damages, Glenn Fessler, who's a buddy of mine from NYU. And I got to sort of hear the stories about how they make these stories. And sometimes it's about like, we like this actor's a pain in the ass. He would tell me things like, I think we've got to kill off this guy. He's kind of being a dick. I got to write that into the next episode. So I started realizing, oh wow, that's how TV is made. The smart people are just doing stuff on the fly. Other TV stuff, I just did City on a Hill with Kevin Bacon on Showtime. I had 3 episodes, and I got to play a racist cop in Boston, which is great. I know a lot of like white actors complain, oh, there's no place for us anymore. What are we going to do? I'm like, hey, there's always a place for racists. You always need people. If you want to show diversity, you got to have people who are going to try to, stomp them down. And I'm all for it if it helps tell the story. And then at the same time, within a couple of weeks, I did a TV show called Mo, which is out on Netflix right now, with Mo Amer, who's brilliant. And it's currently 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it was in the top 10 for about a week of TV shows. And I'm assuming it's going to be renewed for season 2, at which point I would come back as a series regular. And then that one, I get to play a really nice Canadian guy. I do like a little bit of a Canadian accent, and I get to do, so I get to have fun, and it was an incredible set to be on because Mo is the writer, creator, producer, and star, and he's what I found in my career is the people who are the smartest and the funniest and the quickest and the most creative let you play, let you improv, and let you have fun. I mean, same thing with Tommy Kail. He was such a genius that he would listen to everyone's points if they wanted to make changes and stuff like that. And sometimes he would even give you points that he disagreed with because he knew how much it meant to you. And so with Mo, I was supposed to be a really small part, and I showed up to set one day. He goes, "Hey man, I wrote this stuff for you for this one scene in the baseball field in episode 5." And I got to have this big monologue where I lose my shit on Mo. And it was just such a great, that's what you want as an actor. You want the ability to really just play, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're just doing make believe, and we're just overgrown children having fun. And so I really hope more than anything that show, I love acting. I like saying, doing great writing, but it's really fun when you get to just commit to a part and have fun with it with someone who believes in you,
Absolutely. I want to get to something that's very serious, near and dear to my heart, and that is comedy for the troops. So I would like to hear about you with your USO tours. Would you mind telling everybody about how amazing
of
that
course.
was?
Yeah, I guess this was in 2007, 2008. I was opening for Jamie Kennedy. Shout out to Jamie. I was kind of his opener for, at this point, a couple of years. I just started comedy when I started opening for him. And he brought me on the USO tour with him and Paul Wall. And it was wild. I'd never been to the Middle East before. We started off in Kuwait. We went to Iraq and Afghanistan. And, it's one of those things, like, it's very rare that you feel as a comic that you're actually doing something for the betterment of mankind or to really help people. But when you're performing for the troops, and I ended up performing for the troops for years afterwards in different promotions, you get to feel, particularly in Dad, that a lot of these people, they really needed it. And they would let you know, they would tell us, like, look, we have the last American tour they'd had before that. I think maybe Drew Brees had come and did a handshake tour where he just like came and shook people's hands. And before that, they had no live entertainment. So, the final show, we got to perform in front of 8,000 troops outside of Camp Victory in Baghdad. And it was really amazing. The USO had sort of warned me about some of my material being a little blue, a little offensive, and they'd suggested I not say this one bit I did that was very kind of like blue and sexual. But I was up there in front of 8,000 troops egging me on. I turned to Jamie, who was kind of backstage, and I said, "Jamie, I got to do this bit. The closer I'm talking." He just kind of nodded me like, "Go for it." So I did this bit. It killed. And then I got banned from the USO. But you know what? That's okay, because those troops that needed a release and needed catharsis and needed to really laugh at stuff, it was just beautiful. I wouldn't change it for a world,
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I've gone around on my own across the country and done comedy for VA hospitals and veteran stand downs. And one of these days, somebody's going to put me in a USO or Armed Forces Entertainment thing. And that's where I want to be. I don't care if we take incoming fire. I don't care.
Yeah, that's how I felt. A couple points, our helicopter was grounded because of right around 2008 was when the Iraqi troops were able to shoot down our helicopters. So they were shooting down helicopters around that time. So a couple of times we were grounded because of fear for that. And I remember one time we were in a cargo plane, and the pilot was doing evasive maneuvers, which if you've if you've never done evasive maneuvers in a cargo plane and are adrenaline junkie, I recommend it. So and I remember thinking, if this plane goes down, like if my plane ever goes, this is when I want it to go down, when I'm actually in the service of something that I believe is important,
Yeah. Amen. Well, let's wrap her up so that you're not held all night. We went a little bit over. Sorry about that. Well, tell everybody where to see you and where you're going to be next and how to follow you on social media.
Okay. Well, on social media and stuff, everything is just at Bill Dawes, BILLDAWES, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Mostly Instagram is sort of where I'm most active, and that's where I feel like, doing them all is just takes up too much time for an old man like me. But Instagram is where I kind of post my material. I'm not really good at posting my schedule. I tour with Jeremy Piven. I'm going to be in Zanies in Nashville, the 14th through 17th, Levity Live in Oxnard, the 23rd to the 25th. I spend some time in Austin, and I do shows there at the Vulcan sometimes, Big Laugh Comedy. And my home club is probably the Hollywood Laugh Factory. So when I'm back in LA, I get to perform there sometimes. And yeah, I love it. I want to perform in as many countries, as many cities as I possibly can. Usually if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to find when those dates are. I don't really post my calendar, so maybe you have to look for it a little bit. And this is my 10th year of headlining the Las Vegas Laugh Factory. I love it here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I love the crowds here. I really love performing for really diverse groups, because I feel that when you have really diverse groups from all different areas, you can kind of lean into things that might be considered a little bit more edgy or offensive when you're in the West Hollywood Laugh Factory, where you have a lot of people who, I don't want to laugh at that, which is also fun to make people laugh, even though they don't want to. But so I did, we were there. I did a bunch of jokes last night that were, pretty edgy jokes that weren't really working in Hollywood. And last night, people were loving it. I was like, hell yeah, Vegas, because you have Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. You have vegans and people eat nothing but like cows hot off the grill. So it was it's just a really nice. I think that's the magic of comedy, when you can bring everybody with all these different points of views. They might disagree about everything, but they can all laugh at the same thing. I think that's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It was beautiful watching you last night and the last time too. And you guys, if you're in Vegas walking around trying to drink yourself into oblivion, put down the drinks and go get some at the Laugh Factory and watch Bill Dawes and Katie Corzola. Is that how you say her last name?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's featured. My buddy Nikki Paris is your host. Good choice.
Yeah, I love those guys. Every time I go on the road, I always ask them, I think there's going to be a point where they're both too big and they won't be able to open for me. But for now, I'm like, as long as you can open for me, man, I'm taking you guys. They're great people too. And they're also people, wherever we go, it doesn't matter. We can go to Reno, and some people being in Reno, like, oh, I'm in Reno and stuff. They just love it. They just love doing comedy. They love performing more than almost anyone I know. They love performing. And they're such a joy to be around all the time. So I feel lucky to have them, truly.
Yeah, I met Katie the night before I came to your show, and she just welcomed me like with open arms. And I had forgotten that Nikki was here, So every time I come to see Nikki, I get to see you guys.
Yeah, and they're both funny as hell, which is even a bonus.
Yeah, and everyone's comedy is so uniquely different.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I did a couple shows, and I would have a white opener and a white MC, and I was just like, this show is pretty white. We're three straight white men, and I just was like, I always want to have a woman in my show, because my point of view is distinctly not. I mean, I'm not saying it's not pro women. I'm very pro women, but it definitely is the point of view of a man, of a straight white man. I can't pretend I'm something different than that. So I love that Katie's up there with a completely different perspective. Nikki, as a gay man, and then I come up, and we're all like best friends, and we make a completely cohesive but very different show.
Yes, it's a great night. You guys should go. It's worth every penny.
Thank you.
Every penny. So is there anything you would like to say in closing to people who come to comedy shows, or to newer comedians, or people in the world struggling with whatever? Do you have anything you want to close the show out with?
Well, I just think that, over the course of years and decades and whatever, centuries, millennia, live performance is one of the things that really helps bring people together, and it's a way to tell stories and to relate to people that is completely unique, and it's different from all these curated shows. You have these late night sets on Fallon and Kimmel, and they're fine, but they're all very curated. They have to be cleared through corporate sponsors. They're very safe. There's no true interaction between the comic and the audience. And when you're in a live space and you're literally breathing the same air where anything can happen, it's just, it can lend itself to much more memorable moments, much more magic moments. I never understood why comedy, the way it's presented in TV and film, is so different than the actual experience of being a comic, because the actual experience of being a comic is being in a room with actual people and connecting to them and changing your setup based on what they bring you. And sometimes they heckle and sometimes they contribute and sometimes they don't. And that's part of the magic. And sometimes even when you go to a comedy show and bad things happen, let's say Will Smith is in the audience, he wants to slap somebody, it's memorable. You're never gonna forget it. Like you can watch a Netflix comedy special and forget about it a week later. But when you see a live show, most of the time you're going to remember that. And it's going to stay with you for years to come.
That's a great explanation why you should support live comedy, everybody. It's so much different than watching a special recording.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That helped me understand why I like live performance better. I was like, I like live performance better than watching a video. And now it just dawned on me why.
Yeah, this is a small, before I started comedy, I watched Dane Cook perform at the Laugh Factory. And I think I brought a date. This is maybe 2003, when he was like at the top of his game. And I brought a date, and you always are nervous when you bring a date to a show if they're going to like it. And I was actually chewing my fingernails. I was kind of like chewing, because he was doing new stuff, and maybe it wasn't hitting as hard as I some other stuff. I was kind of stage, 250 people, he's killing it. He just looks at me and he goes, and he just chews his nails. He goes back, and I just go, wow, that was such a weird connection, but I never forgot that. And wow, that is what happens in live comedy. Connections happen even for a brief moment. They stay with you. And you want those moments to be good moments, not bad moments, but sometimes they're bad too. In general, they're not. In general, they're good. Yeah.
One of my favorite female comedians is Rita Rudner. And I went and saw her.
Yeah.
I was sitting in one of the first rows, and went to meet her after. And she goes, I saw you laughing at my jokes. And I'm like, gosh, that's so weird.
It's true. It's true. We notice when people, we notice who's laughing, who's not laughing. We notice when people have their arms folded. There's always someone that you just, almost every show I do, there's someone in the audience I'm looking at, I'm like, I got to break this person, how can I break them? And when they do break, I'm like, I got you. That's how I got you, Those are great moments.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's great to get to know you. You guys follow Bill Dawes, mostly on Instagram, not down the street. That's weird. Just find out when he's performing. Said Hollywood Laugh Factory. He comes here a lot to Vegas, to the Laugh. And through Sunday, you can catch him at the Laugh Factory on Tropicana Boulevard. Thank you so much, Bill Dawes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye. Love you lots.
Bye.
Bye.